Welcome, everyone. My name is Perla Piekutowski, and I am the Director of Growth and Engagement here at Fairfax Surrogacy. March is Surrogacy Awareness Month, and this is a good time for us to educate the public about what surrogacy is, who needs surrogacy, the vital role that surrogates play in helping create families, and the support that intended parents and surrogates need when going through this journey or considering this journey to create their family. And in light of this, I am joined today by our special guest, Zach French, the co-founder of the Surrogacy Foundation. Zach and his wife, Alex, have made a tremendous impact in the surrogacy community. And today, Zach is here to share about their personal story, the role of the foundation, and how we can all get involved. Zach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, Perla. It's been enjoyable to create a relationship with you over time. And so I think it was inevitable that we ended up on a webinar like this. You've been so supportive of the organization from the very beginning, and we really appreciate it.
And we are so grateful to have you, Zach. And, for people that don't know, I would love for you to share about who you are and a little bit about your life before surrogacy and how did you and Alex come to the realization that you would need to use surrogacy to create your own family.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start by saying nobody anticipates being involved in any type of infertility over time. It just simply finds its way to you. The journey is not always a straight line. And so my journey was started as, an attorney who was a tech entrepreneur. And I was very happy practicing in that area, learning all about technology. And then in 2019, our lives changed forever. We were rocked with the news that Alexandra had stage 3 breast cancer. It just happened one night when we were laying in bed and she felt a lump. And we immediately started to act because, that was the best thing to do. And we started to call around and figure out who the best medical professionals are that would be able to help us with this. And one of the first pieces of advice that we got when we first met with our surgical oncologist was, hey, you need to preserve your fertility before we start treatment. And knowing that now and how uncommon that is, it is so important that people advocate and tell their medical professionals that fertility and growing their family is important when it's possible to preserve it ahead of time. And so within the time that she was diagnosed to the time that she started treatment, we had 3 weeks to preserve our fertility. And we were, again, very fortunate that the oncologist called around, made sure that we were in the clinic and able to do so in an adequate amount of time. And so we were able to start her treatment. And after about 9 months of treatment, which included chemotherapy, double mastectomy, and 30 plus rounds of radiation, Alexandra was cancer-free. But at the end, we realized that the only way that we could grow our family was through surrogacy. And we were fortunate that when we created embryos, that we had 9 viable embryos. And so we sought out our, research on what is surrogacy. I mean, all we really knew was that surrogacy was a thing that we'd seen in a movie, Baby Mama, or we'd seen celebrities use it. And so there was this kind of like lack of understanding of what it truly meant to go through that journey. And we reached out to one kind of distant friend who had been through it due to some complications during their first pregnancy. And they had recommended an agency here in Atlanta. And we went and talked to that agency, and it was a good fit. And we ended up going on our journey with them. And we're very fortunate to have our baby girl, Addison, via surrogacy in August of 2021. But through that, we realized how crazy and convoluted the process was and how expensive it was. And always instilled in our nature was this idea of giving back right? And how could we support it? And when we looked around for organizations to give our time, to give our money to, there wasn't one that existed that helped anyone with the journey. And so we decided to create it.
Wow. First of all, I am so glad to hear that Alex is cancer-free and that it was a successful journey for you and Alex, and that you were able to see your dream of parenthood become a reality, but also that you were able to act fast. Not everybody gets that chance.
Right.
So I really value we really value the work that the foundation does, raising awareness on surrogacy, and we're thankful that you are doing this work for others that need it. So you did mention that surrogacy, with all of that, surrogacy is emotional. It is an emotional process. It's a challenging process. So how do you navigate those emotions with, you got this news, you suddenly have to act on the cancer treatment, but also on preserving Alex's eggs and then moving on to surrogacy. So how do you navigate all those emotions, and what type of support do you think is needed for people going through that?
Yeah, I think our personal experience showed us that people don't just need money, right? They actually need help navigating every step of the journey. And that feeling that you have, that feeling of vulnerability, that you're alone in this, is simply not true. In fact, there are tons of people that are going through this same process. And there's a great network of professionals like Fairfax Surrogacy that are out there that have done this many times before. So when we started to think about like, what are the emotions that people are going through, we not only thought about it from our perspective, but we wanted to think about it from like a general human perspective, which is that often the hardest part is simply reaching out and asking for help. And so, like, how can we create the environment that allows people to learn more about the journey without needing to feel completely exposed to these different people? That was much of the mission that we wanted to accomplish with the Surrogacy Foundation. We didn't just want to have a handout. We actually wanted to build a village of experts that could support these people every single step of the way. And they would know that because the Surrogacy Foundation is there and supporting this, that this is a good quality way to learn about the process without being in a position where you feel completely uncomfortable.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Zach. So that takes me to my next question is about the Surrogacy Foundation. Can you help us understand what the mission is and how you work?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we recently rebranded from Gift of Surrogacy Foundation, which is where we got our beginnings, to the Surrogacy Foundation. And a lot of that was because we wanted to expand our mission. We started with a very simple mission of providing $100,000 grants to cover the entire cost of surrogacy and pairing that with pro bono services. But now we realize that in order for surrogacy to be accessible, we actually have to propel it into the mainstream so that everyone who dreams of having a family actually has that opportunity. And we're really doing that through like a few like key initiatives. One is our roots, these grants. We don't just want to provide $10,000 or $15,000 grants. We want to continue to provide substantial grants so that people can actually realize their dream of family. The other thing is that we see this role of the complexity and the process that is hard to understand. And so we kind of hold ourselves out as this contemporary guide. We want to support families every single step of the way. And the way that we really do that is providing first-notch education that teaches people what's available out there from an education or support or financial perspective, from my very first fertility treatment all the way through birth and post-birth, right? And if we can create accessible education resources, then all of a sudden, when people are going through this journey, they aren't met with that kind of reactive, oh my gosh, I've been through so much at this point, and now I have to deal with surrogacy. It's more like, oh, I've actually got a decent understanding of the process. And then the other thing, the most important thing, is building a community, a village of support so that we can start to provide people with the necessary connections that they need in order to feel comfortable and know that there's someone out there to help them.
I love that. I love that. So, can you share an example of a family that has been impacted by the foundation's work?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our, nearly 3 years in existence now, we've provided two $100,000 grants paired with pro bono services to help provide the base cost grant for a family that couldn't otherwise afford it. And so our most recent grantees, Shannon and Patrick, were awarded their grant in October of 2024. And a little bit about their story. They actually have a child naturally, and they had a perfectly normal pregnancy when they were going through it. But when they got to the hospital, they started to notice blood loss in Shannon. And there was multiple instances where they actually thought she was going to lose her life. And what they ultimately came up with in order to save her life is that they would have to do an emergency hysterectomy. And that was the only way that she would survive to meet her child. But if they did that, then she would no longer be able to carry their child again. And at the hospital, they told her that surrogacy would be a way that she could realize that. But surrogacy, again, is very expensive and it's a lot to learn. And so for 2 years, they were on this mission to learn about surrogacy and figure out how they were going to afford it and save. And then they heard a podcast with my wife, Alexandra, who co-founded our organization, and they had hope. And so they reached out to us and we told them to apply for our grant. And after a very rigorous process of reviewing their, the medical side and the financial side and their personal story, we ultimately decided to award them this grant. And we're also very excited to announce that they recently matched with their surrogate. And so now their dreams of family are becoming true. And it's not only amazing to see the joy and the hope on their faces, but we recently had our big fundraiser, the Surrogacy Soiree, and I think there was probably 30 people there from their network of family and friends that came out to support them, that were all rooting for them before they even knew about the Surrogacy Foundation. And when you meet every single one of those people and you see the looks on their faces and the hope that they now have that Shannon and Patrick will continue to grow the family, I mean, it's almost indescribable by words. It's just so special to see.
It is so rewarding, right? And behind every process that we help with, there is a story. There is a story like this, of people that have been trying for years, have faced several losses. So I can't wait to follow their story and to, next time we meet, maybe you're sharing about the birth of their new baby. So that is amazing that you were able to help them. Thank you so much for sharing. So you mentioned there is a rigorous process to be able to receive these grants. What goes into that process?
Yeah, absolutely. This was one of the big questions that we faced after we raised enough money to give away our first grant was, this is a complicated process. It takes time, it takes money, it takes coordination, but the ultimate result is what we like to call the magic of surrogacy. But we had to think about, like, how do we preserve and mitigate as much risk while maintaining like an objective stance on the process. And so the first thing we did is we assembled a committee to review these grants. And we started with 4 medical professionals, some doctors who practice infertility, REIs. And then we realized that there's a big financial component of it. And so we assembled some CPAs to start to review the financial side of it. Now, the benefit of these two is that they're providing very objective answers to 2 really important questions, which is, one, what is the severity of the need for surrogacy? Because there's not one of our applicants that applies for our grant that doesn't have an absolutely heart-wrenching story around why they are where they are,
So hard
right?
to choose.
Exactly. So you have to be able to determine from as objective a perspective as possible, what is the severity of their like medical reason for needing surrogacy? And then you'll allow the medical professionals to analyze that. And then there's also this really complicated question of like, what is the right financial state for someone to be in so that they aren't so well off that they could figure out surrogacy on their own, so they weren't the best person to receive the grant, and also not in such a poor position to receive the grant where if some of the variable costs that we don't cover with our grant come up, they would actually be put in a worse situation than we found them, right? And so that financial committee has a very crucial role to take a look at their financials and understand and assess that they're in that sweet spot where this is the perfect opportunity for them. Then, after it goes through those stages, we actually have a personal review committee, which consists of myself, Alexandra, and our third board member. And we have a fertility attorney, we have a mental health professional, and we have an escrow professional who sit on that part of the committee. And that's when we look at their personal statements and we try to assess things like, are they ready for surrogacy? You kind of have to be in a point where you understand it well enough that when things come up, for the most part, you aren't surprised, right? And you don't get discouraged. You understand it's an uncertain process. And you also have to be able to understand that your success in this journey is our success. Because if we can grow based off your story, then that means we can help more families. So there's all these little considerations. And once we go through that process, we actually interview our finalists and we talk to them and we get to know them and we put them in the shoes of someone who's received the grant and see how they would go about it. And after that, we kind of make our decision and we tell these families about the grant and what it entails. And we try to pair them with organizations who are willing to offer their services pro bono so that our dollars go as far as possible.
Mhm.
And I have to say, we have the videos on like pinned on our social media pages. Like, go watch them. Like, the way that we present these grants and the raw emotion that you see from these families when they receive them is just like one of the most special moments like I've ever seen. I still cry every single time I watch it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so rewarding. And it gotta be so difficult to choose those grant receivers. Because yes, as you said, every single one has a gut-wrenching story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. We wish we could help everyone, right?
Yeah, but the fact is, like, and this is what a realization we had as we were going through our rebranding process, as we were trying to appeal to a larger audience and trying to come up with this mission of propelling surrogacy into the mainstream, is that, like, no matter how much money we raise, that's not like there's no like path to helping every family that needs it. That's why we do more than just raise money, right? They actually need the help navigating the step. And what that's doing is it's creating a resume so that we can go to lawmakers and we can go to insurance companies and start to get more possibilities for mandating coverage of this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that the people that are out there that don't necessarily qualify for the grants still have an opportunity to continue their family building process. And those are the real ways that we're going to effectuate change on a massive scale.
Yeah, yeah. And so how, if a family needs help and they want to apply, what would they need to do?
Yeah, so our application process is built out in a software called Orchid, and it's meant to be pretty easy for people to navigate. So when you're going through it, we have some basic eligibility requirements. For the first time this year, we're actually going to be launching a national grant. So anybody that is a U.S. citizen will be able to apply for this grant, whereas our previous two grants have been limited to Georgia residents.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very excited about that. The other thing is we help with the surrogacy process. There are plenty of great organizations out there that help with fertility preservation and creating embryos. So we actually require anybody who applies for our grant to have 3 euploid genetically tested embryos.
Mhm.
And that allows us to pick up at the beginning of the surrogacy process.
Mhm.
And it also ensures the highest likelihood of success for the individuals that are going through the process. As we all know, there's a very, very high percentage of success when transferring 3 embryos over the course of time. The other thing that they're going to have to do is they have to fill out our application. It's an extensive application, right? We want to know about all of your financial and medical history. You're going to have to send a form off to your reproductive endocrinologist to fill out, to tell us about the state of your embryos and to tell us about, what was your medical, what we call our medical contraindication leading to surrogacy, because that helps us evaluate from that medical perspective that I talked about earlier. You're also going to have your financials in order. We have a full financial worksheet, and that allows us to do our financial analysis. So thinking about all the assets and liabilities in your life and, where those stack rank and what is like the actual like cash flow that you have on, a monthly basis at the end of the day. That's all really important because there has to be some level of stability there. And then finally, curating your personal story, right? Like ultimately, we need to help people and understand what brought them to this point. And so making sure that you share that with us in as a helpful way as possible is really important to help us like understand your current situation.
Thank you. What about on the flip side? How
Yeah.
can organizations support your mission?
Yeah, we have a couple of ways. We started out as an event-based organization.
Mhm.
So many people that have become amazing donors for our organization found us through our surrogacy soiree, which we just held, our third annual surrogacy soiree. So attending our events is one way that you can do that. We've also had our first ever West Coast-based event, our surrogacy salon last November, and we plan to continue to do that. And that's for surrogacy professionals, right? That's it. It bookends a conference run by Seeds and ethics, or the leading ethics organization in the space. So joining those events and coming to those events is a big way. The other thing is, if you're a professional in this space, we have this really unique opportunity in our partner program. And what we're doing there is we're trying to unite leaders from around the industry, from different geographies, to come together that understand what it takes to build an organization like that. So if you do want to join the partner program, we are keeping that open through the end of March. Feel free to reach out to me, Zach at giftofsurrogacy.org, or you can just go make a direct donation, right? We have a donation page on our new website, which just launched last week. And it's super easy to go on and make a one-time donation or a recurring donation, and also learn about what we feel like is the vision for the future of accessible surrogacy.
Well, I encourage everyone to please go support the Surrogacy Foundation for the amazing work that they are doing in supporting the family creation process and providing education through that for those looking to create their family via surrogacy. Thank you so much, Zach. Now we have talked about your personal story.
Yeah.
We have talked about the mission of the Surrogacy Foundation, and we just want to get to know a little bit more about the person behind it. So I'm just going to ask you very quick, fun questions to get to know you a little bit more. So I have just a couple of questions. Okay, so if you could instantly become an expert in any skill, what would it be?
Art.
Art. Did you ever pursue art?
I have created a lot of art in my day. I found it as a creative release in more stressful times. And I've also found it to be a very useful parenting tool for
Ah,
showing my kids what they can create without limits, without bounds, that truly speaks to them.
well, that's wonderful. What is your go-to comfort food?
Ooh, go-to comfort food. Definitely buffalo wings from $3 Cafe in Atlanta.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know next time we see you.
Yeah, with
Uh,
blue cheese, not ranch. I'm a blue cheese person.
Interesting. Interesting. That's not easy to find.
Yeah.
What is one hidden talent people might not know about you?
Ooh, a hidden talent. That is a good question.
Well, art
Uh,
is one of them.
what's that?
Art, you just mentioned art.
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden talent. I'm actually like, I don't know if this is like the right kind of answer, but like I'm like a person that knows just enough about a lot of different stuff to be dangerous. So I can nerd out about any subject. So if you want to sit down and talk about one of the most random things and have like a deep conversation, odds are I've been on a tangent at some point in my life and learned about it. So feel free to ask questions about anything and be willing to have a longer conversation about it.
I love that. I love that. I have one last, well, two more questions. If you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would it be?
Hmm. So it's hard to say. All my family and friends are in Atlanta. But I would say that if my goal was to create a unique experience and learn about the different cultures, I would probably spend time somewhere in Africa. I don't think people spend enough time in that continent, and it is actually where my wife's family's from. She's first generation American, so I think it would be a truly unique experience to for my kids and for my family to live at least 1 month, if not 1 year, in Africa.
Of course, that experience can give perspective. And I always say it's nice to travel the world and learn from different cultures and get perspective.
Exactly.
One last question. What's a book or movie you could watch on repeat?
Book or movie? I would say that the book that I have read the most, that I will continue reading for the rest of my life, that actually changed my life, was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, well, that's why you're so good with people. And it's so nice to talk to you. Always, you make everybody feel comfortable.
Oh, so do you, Perla. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Zach. It's always a pleasure to see you, to talk to you, to learn about your work, and to continue to support others that need surrogacy to create their family. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you too. Virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs.